any of y'all ever came to BMSC as a high school student, I get to do that awesome job and teach the students who come here, along with like lots of other stuff like workshops and conferences, and just I have the best job ever. It's great. My background is in kelp forest ecology. I'm a kelp forest ecologist. I have my master's in conservation biology from the Victoria University of Wellington in New Zealand. I study seaweed, as you might be able to tell from my shirt. And I'm from Wisconsin in the US, and we're not going to talk about any of that tonight. Like, who cares? No one cares. Tonight we are talking about the deep sea. And the way that I like to do this presentation is like the more that y'all speak, the better. Like, who cares what I have to say? What rocks is like all of us like pointing and shouting out and being like, hey, what is that? Or like, wow, it's beautiful. Or any of that, like all kinds of that stuff, that good stuff. I'll speak and share as much as I know, but the deep sea is as much of a new topic to me as it is maybe to us. Like I think it's a place that's so often out of sight, out of mind, and in reality, the deep sea is the biggest, largest ecosystem on our planet by like significant orders of magnitude, right? It's the biggest habitat we have going on. And for that purpose, this is why I was like, it's right there. Like, we're not talking deep sea enough. So our goal is to just celebrate with our deep sea extravaganza tonight. Being the largest habitat on our planet, there are so many different avenues we could take this. Talk about like such a mammoth of a topic. For our purposes tonight and our time, our flow will look a little something like this. We'll start with layers of the ocean, be like, okay, which is deep sea, which is not. Where did the anglerfish come in? Like all that kind of stuff. We'll talk about challenges and adaptations to deep sea life. The deep sea habitat is really intense, like super harsh, super hostile. How is there so much life down there? Spoiler alert, there's a ton of life down there. It's so biodiverse and amazing. And with that, well, of course, we need to look at some creatures of the deep sea. We're going to get into our gallery. We'll do the second half of our talk discussing how we explore deep sea. So we'll talk about what we do here at BMSC specifically to support deep sea research, and we'll close by talking about how we protect this incredible ecosystem that is so often out of sight, out of mind. So, our very first layer of the ocean, we may be familiar, is the epipelagic zone, also known as the sunlit zone, right? This is where we as people, this is where we're hanging out, right? There are 5 layers of the ocean, generally speaking, and for each of our slides on the 5 layers, they'll look like this. There's like our depth meter on this side. This little thermometer will stay going on, and we'll see a couple of organisms that are most commonly found in this zone, right? Characteristically, or environmentally, the epipelagic zone has a really steep thermal climb. It gets really, really hot to really, really cold really, really fast. The epipelagic zone, or the sunlit zone, ends at 200 meters. The deep sea is defined as anything below 200 meters. Okay, that's 4/5 of the layers of the ocean. Like, that's insane. Also, 200 meters, that's not that deep, in my opinion. When I learned that, I was like, that's it. Like, I thought we were going to have to like go way down there. Like, some people go here. That's crazy. Other thing about the epipelagic zone is the sunlit zone is not only referring to the amount of light, it's referring to photosynthetic activity. So generally speaking, the epipelagic zone is one of the few zones in our ocean where not only is there visible sunlight, but there's enough light reaches that there's photosynthesis. Very important for so many of our organisms. Classic deep sea creatures we know and we love, right? We got our orca, our seal. It's great. Coming up next is the mesopelagic, also known as the twilight zone. I'm very fond that deep sea things tend to get very poetic. Like, there a lot of like the technology that we use gets like spacey names, and different organisms get very poetic names. The layers of the ocean are very poetic to me. The twilight zone, it's exactly what it sounds like. Starts at 200 meters. Whoa, that's way bigger than the epipelagic. It goes all the way down to a kilometer, covering lots of ground. My ground in water. 332 meters is the on-record deepest scuba dive ever done by a person. That's crazy. It's pretty intense, right? with the twilight zone, sunlight is here. It's here, but it very rapidly disappears, right? Most of the twilight zone, not all, but most is dark. And also, this is where we lose photosynthesis. The light just can't reach, the photosynthetic energy just can't reach. Things are starting to get a little bit more unique. Sea creature-wise, like our giant octopus is coming in, our tuna. Who knew our sperm whale is going almost a kilometer deep? Many of us. Now we're hitting the bathypelagic. Oh, it's getting deep sea, right? Like, now we're talking. That's what I expected, right? This is our anglerfish, our blobfish. I was quite surprised to see the narwhal coming in so far. 10 pinniped E organism, right? Wow, that's very cool. Midnight zone is also quite big, 1 to 4 kilometers. Midnight zone is what it sounds like. It's dark. No photosynthesis, no visible light, that's all gone. The bathypelagic zone is also where the temperature really starts to stabilize. How cold is the deep sea?
So cold.
Is it hot or is it cold? Cold. It's really cold. It's really cold. And it's less. How many digits of numbers is it cold? Single digits. Generally speaking, the deep sea is sitting at about 2 degrees Celsius. Or really, really cold, right? For a little bit of human to deep sea connection, 3.8 Ks beneath the surface is the resting place of the Titanic. Very interesting. We don't think about it all the time, but there we are, our impact. 2 more layers coming up. They're quite similar. The abyssopelagic, the abyss, very poetic, perfect name. I'm gonna set it better myself. Organisms are getting kind of freaky nasty. Like, whoa, it's like, I forget the exact names of these, but it's something like the devilfish and the viper fish. Like, it's getting like, what's the blobby one up there? The blobby one. This is a type of sea cucumber, and it's called a sea pig. It looks very Kirby to me, like Kirby Jigglypuff. Yeah. 4 to 6 Ks, generally speaking, when we're going all the way down to 4 to 6 Ks, most of the deep sea and most of the sea floor is in the abyss. Like 6 Ks is most of the sea floor. It's only when we get into the crazy trenches and canyons and valleys that we head into the hadopelagic zone. Hadal, root from Hades. The trenches, raise your hand if you're in the trenches. Maybe not yet, maybe at some point you'll be in the metaphorical trenches, but not right now, that's excellent. This is where we're getting crazy, right? All the way down to 11 Ks. That's where we're pulling in, what's the deepest trench on Earth? The Mariana Trench, aka the Marinara Trench. Okay. This also, for context, if this is helpful for like as a visual perspective, 8.8 Ks down is the height of Mount Everest. If the base of Mount Everest was at the surface and Mount Everest was going down. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
Yes. Awesome. Fabulous. Okay. All that to say, that is our introduction to what part of the sea are we even talking about? Like when we say deep sea, what do we mean? That's what we mean, right? Maybe that was new information, maybe that's like classic, got it. Thanks to the review, we're ready to go. Now we talked earlier that deep sea life is really hostile. Here's a time to shout out what you think. When you think of the deep sea environment, what comes to mind? What is it like down there? Scary. Really scary. Raise your hand if I could give you a safe, guaranteed return. Raise your hand if you're like, oh yeah, I go to the deep sea, no problem. Raise your hand if you're like, I'm not messing with that. Like, I'm not touching that. Like, I was never meant to be there. I'll never be there. That's right. I'm gonna call that the deep sea. The deep sea may be scary. Environmentally, what else is it like? Pressure. Did anyone clock the song I was playing? You got it. There's a ton of pressure, so much pressure, like thousands and thousands of atmospheric pressure. What else?
lonely.
Oh. Lonely, maybe, or maybe for some. For others, it might be like a little overcrowded, depending on where you are. We'll see. What else? Pressure? Really cold. Really, really, really cold. Almost freezing. Not quite, but pretty almost. What else? Any other things, Libby? Dark. Fantastic, right? There are so many different types of challenges to deep sea life, but generally speaking, we can sum them up, and for the sake of our time, we're going to be looking at darkness, temperature, and pressure. And we'll start with darkness. Okay. One adaptation to darkness is to just make your own light. Like, probably, I don't need the sun, I am the sun. When we think bioluminescence, are we typically thinking something like this? Like planetonic bioluminescence? When I think of bioluminescence, I think of like, because I'm crazy if you've seen it in real life. You've like gone off the dock and swirled it, or like maybe you've been swimming and you can swim through it. Yeah, it's so awesome, right? That is totally bioluminescence. Yes, correct. That bioluminescence being made by plankton. Most creatures in the deep sea, I think it's around 75%, actually bioluminesce. Like the majority create their own light. That's awesome. They might do it for different reasons. Our first deep sea creature is the classic. You couldn't go wrong. Like, what's this? The anglerfish, exactly. It's missing a tooth. It's getting kind of gnarly. Where's the bioluminescence? I don't see anything. Oh, I wish the camera could turn it. Exactly. This here is the anglerfish's fishing pole appendage. Very simple. We'll breeze through the anglerfish. It's like classic. This purpose of bioluminescence is to attract prey, right? If it's dark and intense, I don't want to waste energy going around trying to find it. I'm just going to bring them right to me. The idea is to lower it down. We've seen Finding Nemo or Finding Dory or whichever one it's in. And yep, thank you. And there's the light attracts prey. They don't see the big gnashing jaws behind it. Chomp, they're dead. Oh, sorry. So one use of bioluminescence is to attract prey. Another use, let's cool it off for a minute. Isn't that beautiful? This is the red crown jelly, and I should say much of the footage that we're viewing today is sources up here. Much of this footage comes from Monterey Bay Aquarium Research Institute. It's an exceptional organization doing amazing deep sea work. The red crown jelly is using bioluminescence very similarly to plankton. Does anyone know why plankton bioluminesce? Our leading theory. Sabrina's got it.
It's luciferin. It's the chemical that basically reacts with oxygen in the body, and that catalysis, that reaction, the oxidization of luciferin into something else. Oxyluciferin or something. The addition of oxygen releases light.
You're exactly right. In plankton, that is totally how bioluminescence is created. Why evolutionarily, ecologically, when plankton wants bioluminescence? What's the point?
Defense.
It's not just like created. Yeah.
I don't know if it's true.
Go for it.
One person said to me one time, like, oh, I can do it so like it's like, oh, there's disturbance that might them. So like, hey, we're gonna light up so that something bigger comes and eats it so it doesn't eat us.
Yeah, you're spot on.
Okay.
Excellent work, right? The term for it is the burglar alarm system. The other way to think of it is the enemy of my enemy is my friend. If I'm a little shrimp and I'm starting to get eaten by a fish, if I bioluminesce and can illuminate the fish, then I might attract the fish's predator. The burglar alarm saying, help, 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 help. The enemy of my enemy is my friend. That's our leading hypothesis why plankton bioluminesce. Our understanding as well for the red crown jellies is the same thing, right? We're trying to bioluminesce whoever might be eating the red crown jelly. Now, phytoplankton, the red crown jelly, the anglerfish, what color do we see this light as? Blue-green, exactly, right? Blue-green, why would it be advantageous to make blue light?
It's the wavelength that travels the longest.
Gorgeous, exactly, right? Blue light travels the farthest, or in colloquial terms, right? You can see it the farthest, and it's the loudest. It's the loudest. It's the clearest form of communication. What's the shortest wavelength then? What's the quietest? Red, exactly. Now for bioluminescence, we think that almost everything that bioluminescence makes blue-green light, except for one very, very magical, gorgeous miracle organism. Pixie dust. The gossamer worm bioluminesces gold, and we have no idea why. It's just a miracle. We don't ask, we just celebrate, right? Awesome. Okay, that's one adaptation for darkness. I'll just make my own light. I'll bioluminesce. Boom. I'm solved. Another strategy is to change the physical body color of an organism, right? When I ask many students this, I'm like, what color would be most helpful? They're like clear or black, and they're absolutely right. But if we had to be a color, and we just thought about our blue bioluminescence, what color would be most helpful for us to be?
Red.
Red, exactly. Many, many deep sea creatures are red. The red color acts kind of like an invisibility cloak. Again, this resource is from the Monterey Bay Aquarium. They're so fantastic, and their deep sea exhibit is exceptional. They created this toggle. We can see that these jellies are red because an ROV is down there shining a spotlight on it. But if we were down there like face to face, no light, we would see a little something closer to this. Right? Right? How advantageous. Very cool. As we go through the rest of our organisms, you might pick up on a theme of like, wow, there's so many red ones. That's right. A third adaptation, in addition to bioluminescence and body color, is to change actual physiology, right? If we're in a super dark environment, what physiological trait would be really helpful to alter?
Big eyes.
Big eyes, huge eyes. This is what makes some deep sea creatures really scary to some and really cute to others. You decide. Here we go. You're kidding.
Emily,
Look at that face.
we found a rat tailfish.
Did you?
Yeah, I was washed up on the beach.
When did you find it?
It was at Brady's Beach like a week ago.
No. Were you guys the rotten fish one?
Yeah.
Yes, I have a rat.
Listen, somebody was supposed to take care of it. Not my problem.
No one took it out of the fridge. Okay, understood.
Like I said, not my problem. I was on a camping trip.
Yeah. Please, I'm working right now. Exactly. Also, did you catch the ratfish getting very sassy at the end when it turns Now, I'm so glad that you have that personal experience of finding. Oh, here it is. Ready? Look at the sass. I have also seen a ratfish washed up on Brady's Beach. This was last fall, and I remember when I learned about a ratfish and its whole deal, and it's usually the deep sea, I was like, this is not good. Like, this is doomed. Like, there's a lot of these creatures coming up. And then I quickly learned that, like, no, it's actually fine. Like, it's semi-rare, but it's not unheard of. The ratfish is often found for a couple Ks down, but they can occupy the upper levels of water. So don't panic. This is like one of my favorites, the baffle squid. Just another super cute example of big, beautiful eyes. Also, you'll note that it's red. The baffle squid looks like a Pokemon to me. Yes. We'll have to come up with a name for it. Now, has anyone seen these before? Yeah. This is maybe a fan favorite. This is a really intense change to physiology, right? This is a barrel eye fish. And rather than putting their eyes on the outside and making them big, they are just like, I'm just going to put the eyes in my head and then make my skull clear. If that's okay. Like, that's my plan. Yes, there's like these like phantom eye sockets where an eye maybe once was. It looks like there should be an eye, and now it's in here. My understanding is that the green orbs, those green orbs kind of like scan through wherever is clear on the skull. They can see up, all the way down, all the way down. Really intense. The barrel fish is also rather rare, and I'm drawing the details a little bit of a blank, but the barrel fish for this institute, the Amari Institute, who are watching this ROVs, they've done something around 10,000 dives with their ROV and just collected so much data. They've only seen the barrel fish 9 times. So by deep sea standards, it's kind of unique. Again, I treasure cooking. Okay, darkness done, no problem. I can just check my physiology. I can kind of keep beautiful eyes. I can be red. I can make my own light. Now we're up against temperature. It's really cold in the deep sea. There's a couple different things you can do about it. Something that is fairly well documented is deep sea gigantism. Oops, I skipped too fast. There's a couple ecological principles that support this. One being Cleaver's rule that animals that are larger tend to be more efficient. Think of like a whale is more efficient than like a minnow. That's one principle. Another principle is Bergman's rule, which is this documented trend that the colder it gets, the bigger organisms get. All this really means is that some things in the deep sea are really big, really, really big. One very fabulous example is the giant isopod. For, again, some people may be obsessed, and some people are like, oh, I hate that, I hate that, I hate that. The giant isopod, they're related to the little roly-polies, little woodlice, of course. Those are typically what, on land, like the size of a pinwheel or something. Now we're talking over a foot of the giant isopod. Oh, maybe that's the heebie-jeebies. It's way easier to just look. Let's look.
We've just got a Pachynomus giganteus swimming into view, and these are one of the most charismatic deep sea animals. They are very closely related to the woodlice, which you get living on dead trees and so on, but except these ones are massive. They're usually about a foot long and are just one of my favorite deep sea animals. I'm so glad we got to see one already. Giant isopod. They are really, really important scavengers in the deep sea benthic environment. They're thought to be found worldwide and are a really, really great example of deep sea gigantism. Most isopods found in the deep sea are smaller than your thumbnail. And so this is a huge break from tradition as it's, as much as a foot long or even more in some cases. To some people, they're really cute. To some people, they're the stuff of nightmares.
But a show of hands, if I could give you a giant isopod who's like, oh, I want one of the pets, that's so cute. Who's like, I would smash that with a book. Well, yeah. Something insane. Something comical. A piano from the sky. Cartoon style. Okay. One thing, it's really cool. I can get huge and like really rock out and have deep sea gigantism. I can also kind of break the rules. The ice fish is kind of similar to the barrelfish strategy where it's like, I'm really just gonna freestyle and do my own thing. The ice fish is a fish, a deep sea fish, especially near the poles, like near the poles is where it's most common. Okay, if this is a fish, where's the blood? Where did you see the blood? The ice fish is clear, like we're seeing all those bones and organelles, but we're not seeing the blood. Show of hands, there's the blood, obviously. Show of hands, I know that there's blood, but something's afoot. Something is afoot, exactly. Ice fish blood is not based in iron. There's no iron, so we don't need it. Hemoglobin and red blood cells for us typically are doing what in our body? What are they responsible for? Oxygen, exactly. They transfer oxygen. The ice fish has a different strategy. Rather than relying on red blood cells or hemoglobin to circulate oxygen, instead, the ice fish has some particularly equipped enlarged gills that instead are able to diffuse oxygen directly from the water column. Once it gets inside the ice fish body, the blood circulates it along with the plasma. That's what's going on. The blood is clear. colder than regular deep sea. The blood also has chemical compounds in it that are very akin to like our commercial antifreeze that helps it help make sure the fish doesn't freeze. The blood doesn't freeze. Okay, just like in real estate, one of the ways to survive the deep sea, say it with me now.
Location, location, location.
Exactly. What ecosystem is this? Oh, you're on it. Hydrothermal vent, right? Exactly. Hey, if it's freezing cold around me, how about I just go to the exact extreme opposite and go somewhere scaldingly, like hotter than boiling? That is the hydrothermal vent, right? We have hydrothermal vent very locally, the Ponte Vecchio hydrothermal vent. Another place that has a space name, Endeavor, is I think the formal name, and the Endeavor hydrothermal vent, very cool. Hydrothermal vents rock. Not only do they provide like a physical structure similar to like a reef, like any reef, like this structure provides habitat. Also, all of these huge plumes, you may be well familiar, are shooting out tons and tons of really intense nutrients. Super valuable for these tube worms, would kill us instantly. Like really toxic sulfur and really harsh chemicals that are erupting out of the Earth's crust. Earlier we talked that photosynthesis doesn't really reach farther than the epipelagic zone, maybe the mesopelagic if you're lucky. Rather than photosynthesis, hydrothermal vents also allow for an alternative in the form of chemosynthesis. Are we familiar? We're familiar, perfect. Chemosynthesis, basically the same process, but instead of using the sunlight, we use the chemicals coming out of this black plume. For sake of time, I think we'll breeze past the video. But speaking of keeping it local, in addition to location, yes, that location might provide heat and nutrients like a hydrothermal vent, but here in BC, we have glass sponges, the BC glass sponges. Are we familiar with these? Maybe have they come up in this yet? Yeah. Awesome, okay, fantastic. I'll breeze through it. Basically, again, we have this amazing organism, this living organism, this sponge, that's providing an oasis amongst the deep sea. Oh, let's see how our view is. This organism provides complex habitat. It creates a little community in the deep sea. It acts like an oasis. Ready to go. Okay, our final challenge to deep sea life is the pressure. The pressure is immense. We're under pressure. Hence the song. There's a couple different things you can do for pressure. One is to create a really gelatinous body. Anything with an air sac or a fluid sac under pressure is really not going to do well. If we go just to the depths of this blobfish, our lungs are just going to implode. Not going to be very good for us, no good. But luckily the blobfish, having such a gelatinous, it's like a fidget. You know what I'm saying? It's like that a little bit. Just this big spongy body. That's really helpful to change the morphology of your body to adjust to such intense pressure. Very similarly, and this is my favorite deep sea creature, get ready. The peacock squid. Are you kidding? Are you kidding? And it changes color. And it changes color. Are you kidding? I mean, it doesn't get any cuter. It looks like a bird, it does, right? It's just so cute. Like, I just love it. The cockatoo squid, the peacock squid, it's got a little bit of this. Yeah. I'm not showing you this just because it's cute, although it absolutely is. The peacock squid has something similar to a fluid sac, but inside this gelatinous body is a fluid sac that's ammonium-based. So it makes it a little bit more flexible. It allows the peacock squid to maintain a healthy body form and adjust to the peacock squid kind of goes like this, like an accordion, as it floats up and down the water. So sweet. Now, a local hero of deep sea is our hagfish. Are we familiar with hagfish in the room? Yes, okay, amazing. This has not come up in May, this is not new for, are you just hagfish people? Yes, so when you have the best, you have the best. For sake of time, we'll move past the video, even though it's absolutely hilarious. It's 2 minutes of very dramatic hagfish happenings. What I really want to jump to is this. Have we seen this before? Even if you've seen it before, this is worth watching. The thing about hagfish is they are famous for their slime. They're slimy, they're slimy crazy, like beyond capacity, they're slimy. Have we seen the hagfish that are here on campus? Yeah? Maybe a couple folks. In our tank down at the foreshore, one of our tanks, there is a tank of about 200 hagfish. How many? 100?
We have 500.
500 hagfish. Going once, twice. Sold. Okay, amazing, right? We support hagfish research here, and I'm so sorry for what happened to these hagfish researchers. I'm really wishing them the best. There we go. In the States, in Oregon, a truck carrying hagfish unfortunately had an accident, and the hagfish spilled out onto the road, erupting in immense slime, and hundreds of hagfish strewn across the road. I know. And the thing, like, I applaud these responders, but if we are hagfish folk, I know, that is so intense. Look at those braids. If we are hagfish folk, we may know that the mucus, the slime of hagfish, is water activated. So when we're seeing people really doing their best and using a big fire hose to move the hagfish, they're actually just making so much more slime.
What's even worse for the hagfish as fish is that when they use their slime defense, the defense means that they clog up the gills of the fish attacking them so they can't breathe. This also means that hagfish have adapted to not need as much oxygen to survive. So this means that they are asphyxiating for much, much longer than you think they were. So they were in a very large amount of pain for a very long time.
You are so right.
Sorry to bring down the tone.
It's important. It's true and it's realistic. And it's how it goes sometimes. The hagfish. The highs and lows of hagfish. We have been out on the Alta for this yet. Have you guys been out? Maybe some so far. Next week. Next week you will have the pleasure of touching the very same sea table that once held these gorgeous, magnificent hagfish, right? We support a ton of hagfish research here at BMSC, and those researchers should be here shortly, so we might be able to ask them specifically about what they're up to these days. Okay, that's all fine and good and awesome and beautiful. We love those creatures. We love seeing the different layers of the ocean. How do we even know this in the first place? Deep sea exploration is, like, in my opinion, our crowning accomplishment as human beings. Like, forget space. Space is easy. Deep sea is hard, mainly because of this, like, inconceivable pressure. At BMSC, we're lucky enough that we get to, like, be on the edges of deep sea support. One of the things that we do is support a fleet of gliders. Have we seen these before? Maybe yes, maybe no. They're exactly what they look like. They're kind of like this torpedo-based thing, except on all throughout the body of the glider are all kinds of sensors. You name it, they got it. They collect temperature, salinity, pH, acidity, spawning. They're used for just the most amazing things. They're autonomous, so they're self-navigating in the way that they can avoid, like, smashing into the ground or smashing into a reef, hopefully, right? Hopefully, if everything goes to plan. We support gliders here at BMSC, and you may have seen them going out and coming back in. They're super heavy, by the way. There's Phil and Kelly. Love them. They're amazing. Cameron, Ben, we got the whole crew, right? When we go out to deploy gliders, the gliders come in their own little carrying case like this. It's very chic. And we wheel it on down, and then we bring it on the boat. And then when it's time to deploy it, we just chunk very carefully, of course. But we hoist it off the side, and and then we watch it go down, and we're like, yes, job done. And then a couple weeks go by, and then it's like, hey, we need to go get the glider again, and then we have to go retrieve it. So we go and retrieve it. The researcher, while they are autonomous, the researcher can talk to the glider. It can tell it what to do, like a remote control. So if you're out here and you're looking for the glider, you do get GPS coordinates. We get GPS coordinates, but it's the ocean, right? That thing's very restricted. So you go to where the coordinates are, and then for maybe like 20 minutes or so, like, anyone see it? Anyone see it? And then maybe you'll see this little tiny pole sticking up with a blinky light. That's our glider. We're ready to go. To bring it on board, we very carefully hoist it using our muscles because it's really heavy. Bring it on board, settle it. It's very much like if any of you have ever done lifeguard training and you have to backboard someone, it's so similar to that. That's like the perfect analogy. We backboard the glider up onto it. Boom. One of the glider fleets that we support specifically is called Sea-Proof, Canadian Pacific Robotic Ocean Observing Facility. Great acronym. These are all the gliders that are in the Sea-Proof fleet that are going around the coast right now. And you can go into seaproof.com or .org or whatever, and you can watch it live, watch the gliders go around. It's very cool. Gliders rock. We also are fortunate enough to be partners with Ocean Networks Canada. Are we familiar? Ocean Networks Canada they're just outstanding. Talk about an exceptional organization, exceptional people, outstanding research, and amazing feats of technology. One of the technology tools that Ocean Networks Canada can use is right off of our coast. Again, it's getting poetic. It's getting spacey. This is called the Neptune Observatory. And what we mean by observatory is just a collection of sensors that all work together in a little bundle. Here's our Neptune Observatory. There's us. Port Alberni's in here. That's where the cables, the land office, land headquarters, the data place. And there's Banfield. It goes right past Banfield. Each of these orange squares are the sensors, are the nodes, in other words. For any ocean technologists folks, this design is outstanding. It's done in a circle on purpose so that if any accident happens or something gets dropped off a boat or something is pulling across the seafloor and one of these cables gets severed, they won't lose, like let's say this one gets severed. Instead of sending the power this way, they can send it the other way. So they at least keep power to the rest of the nodes. So cool. You can send power both ways. What we do to support this work and support the Neptune Observatory is the very first one is at Folgers. Have you gone there yet for mints? You might go there. Maybe not. But the Folger node, there's two parts to it. There's one that's on top of a seamount and there's one that's a little bit further down. And we support the commercial divers who go out to service the Folger sensor. It needs a tune-up maybe twice a year, something like that. Gets biofouled, recalibrated, that kind of thing. So cool. A third amazing resource that we've been observing this whole time is an ROV, remote operated vehicles. Again, we're getting poetic. They're getting cool names like the Mantis and the Hercules. I love that. We should have an ROV naming contest. It's gonna be awesome. ROVs are all of the footage that we've been seeing of these organisms, almost all of them are coming from ROVs, right? They're just like these amazing organisms, basically. These amazing pieces of technology. Generally speaking, they have the same anatomy. There's a two-part system. This main one is going to have a really good camera, super bright lights, and it's going to be attached to the tether. This, again, is another genius, like ocean technology piece, so that when the ROV is always attached, fun fact. Maybe you knew that, maybe not. ROV is always attached, and if it was attached without a tether, it would just like get jerked along with the waves, but that tether system allows for things to just really heat up. That's how we get such high quality footage.
the radioforwards?
Used for organisms, but they're also, many of them have limbs
Yeah.
that are able to retrieve things.
Hilarious.
These are scientists being funny.
Garbage off the bottom.
Doing a responsible thing.
I'll break that in there.
Surprised there wasn't more sediment on that.
Be gentle.
Out comes the
You put it
drawer.
in the bubble. Bubble. Wonder if the battery's still.
I need a charge.
Once I found the pool with my cell phone, it worked after 12 hours. So I have to go to help us.
Yeah, about 2 years. 2 years since 1,300 meters. I feel better now.
Wow, scientists get chatting, they're just like us. I guess the next week. Not only are these awesome for capturing amazing video and media, but they have really great scientific practice. We saw earlier, maybe you noticed it in the glass sponge reef, that ROV arm that was coming out and maybe taking a sample. That's another thing that they can do. It's just like seeing them picking up this radio, this litter off of the seafloor. It's exceptional. To close out, and to make sure we finish on time, we're going to end by zipping through how we protect the biggest ecosystem on the planet. This is pretty hot in the news right now. It's super current. I revised this presentation like maybe 2 weeks ago. I can almost guarantee you it's already outdated. It's just changing so fast. We're likely familiar with deep sea mining, but an intro to what's going on is anytime we do scientific discovery, we're doing it for the sake of discovery and organisms and scientific knowledge, and we might also stumble upon an untapped resource. That's exactly what's been happening with deep sea exploration. These black rocks are called nodules, these nodules. They get sometimes also poetic names like golden apples or sea potatoes or something like that. I'm a bit like, don't give it a cute name. Anyway, these nodules, these big chunks, are full of really valuable, rare, precious metals. So things like cobalt, things like lithium, everything in our phones, our laptops, solar panels, electric cars, like you name it, we're loving and using trace metals all the time, precious metals all the time. With deep sea mining, we're discovering that our seafloor has quite an abundant supply of these resources. When you get out past a nation, the nation's government of an ocean nation, like Canada's law, only extends so far. I forget the exact way, 200 nautical miles? Does that sound right? 200 nautical miles or so. But once we get past that, then we enter the high seas. Super hard to govern the high seas. It's kind of like Antarctica. It's like, well, it's no one, so who's responsible? One of the governing bodies is the International Seabed Authority, the ISA. This is the most recent map I can find. It's from 2021, so surely it's outdated at this point. So the most recent one I can find. This map is showing places that the ISA has approved for deep sea mining exploration. They have not approved the act of deep sea mining, but they have approved these nations to go investigate and see like if there's anything worth mining, essentially. We can already infer as a class full of marine scientists that deep sea mining will have profound harmful environmental impact, not only to our environment, not only to our sea, to human health, you name it, we can hypothesize it, right? This model captures a couple different examples. As a kelp biologist, as you can tell from my shirt, as a kelp ecologist, I think a lot about the increase in sedimentation and how the more sediment there is in the water column, the less photosynthesis is possible for macroalgae in addition to all photosynthesizing organisms. Also thinking about noise. Noise travels 4 times faster in water than it does in the air. You may be familiar with that, maybe not. Surely, deep sea mining will contribute to noise pollution pretty significantly. Not to mention that just this collection of ecosystem disturbance. We have this beautiful, pristine ecosystem that's full of life and full of biodiversity and full of just these unknown treasures that's totally at risk for deep sea mining. even a study with so much foresight, for a 40-year study, it's pretty exceptional, coming out last year, this group of scientists set up a mock, they simulated a very small mining site, They simulated a mine and they left it alone and monitored it ever since. 4 decades later, we're still seeing little to no signs of life returning. Quite a powerful study, really exceptional foresight from these scientists. We can refer to this. Most of the time when I'm giving this presentation, I'm speaking with students who are too young to vote yet. Yes! Thinking about, was anyone around for this? Sometimes we have a few folks who've been here. This is a UBC youth-led protest in Vancouver. There was a meeting for international marine protected areas, and there were a couple of folks who were sitting on the pro-mining side, a couple of industry people who were invited, and this led to a pretty powerful youth-led protest, or student-led protest, right here in our backyard of Vancouver. We have power, we can vote in so many different ways, with our time, with our money, we know. Another thing to think about is whatever happens on land happens at sea. When I went to school, like high school and elementary school, my school chairs look like this. Did they look like this for you? This picture especially is very to me, it's like chairs sitting up. Whoa, okay. As we can see, any pollution that exists on land will eventually make its way to the sea. This much we know, we got this. It surely incorporates itself into the ecosystem, and not in a way that's like, oh look, they're using it. No, we know that it's habitat degradation in pretty significant ways. A very striking video, this comes from Ocean Networks Canada, is just ROVs going along, and they're trying to use the ROV arm to pick up this rice cooker, this old pressure cooker, and not only is there a crab on top, but when they open it, it was home to an octopus den with eggs. A very powerful octopus. They made the decision to, since it was home to such a powerful organism, it was home to not only this adult octopus, but also this den, this nursery for her eggs. They made the decision to leave it, and they thought it more directly harmful to remove the home than to just leave the rice cooker. Really interesting. Again, it's not like, I don't have a problem, go make it their own home. It's gonna be great. No, we know that. Always better to be mindful of what happens on land, which is the fact that it's so much easier, similar to we're a voting age. Awesome. We're seeing this pretty consistent trend. I find it a very meaningful trend in policy and legislation at city levels, at state levels, province levels, all the way up to national levels, against what kind of materials can be made. So things like a single-use plastic that generates such significant ecological harm, surely that goes directly out to the sea. It's so much more effective to stop the problem at the root than to try and always clean up what keeps getting produced. We would never be able to clean up all of the pollution or all of the plastic that's being made. It's much more efficient and effective to utilize legislation and policy to be able to stop the production of a harmful substance. Finally, one other thing we can look at for the sake of our evening together for protecting the deep sea is really examining our destructive fishing practices, or opting for non-destructive fishing practices. Here's a dredge, bottom trawling. We're familiar, I'm sure we've come across this. Basically, these big heavy chains hold the net down. These buoys hold the net open, and there's kind of doors on the side that keep the net wide. Part of what makes bottom trawling so attractive as a fishing practice is that you get so much stuff. It's awesome, we get a ton. It's effective. However, with bottom trawling, not only does there come a significant amount of bycatch, it's such an unselective fishing method, but also anything in the path of these heavy waves, so these big nets, which can be around a kilometer, huge. Anything in the path of this toe is going to get smashed. When we discovered the glass sponges off of our coast of British Columbia, we saw that most of, we found this miracle of science that we had these glass sponges. We thought they were extinct. Our most recent understanding of their presence on Earth was all the way in the European Alps, fossils, millions and millions of year old fossils. And then in the 70s, these divers discovered these glass sponges. It was like a miracle. They described it like it was like you're driving down the road and a herd of T-Rex across your path. Like it was that impossible, right? Not only did they discover these living reefs, but alongside that discovery, talk about like the emotion of this, where you see this organism brought back to life, and then at the same time you're discovering that so much of the glass sponge reefs has already been destroyed from destructive fishing practices. The reefs they just get smashed. To counteract this, it took almost 2 decades, so it's sitting around 20 years to get this policy in place. However, in BC and off of the coast of Vancouver Island, we have a collection of marine protected areas specifically for these BC glass sponges. If anyone's taken a BC ferry before, I don't know, we have maybe even gone directly over a glass sponge reef and we don't even know. Very cool. Now, the thing with policy, we were talking about policy in our protecting this deep sea closing chapter. Policy is the first step. The second step, and one that I would say is extremely essential, is policy needs to be followed up with monitoring, compliance, and regulation. If there's a law that nobody follows, it doesn't do any good. So when we see something like this, like these headlines of illegal fishing in a glass sponge marine protected area, it's not cool, of course. It's not cool that there's illegal fishing happening in these MPAs. But my perspective is that it's cool that there is some regulation here. Like that's nothing to stop that. It's pretty big fine, pretty significant fines here. And even though, depending on your perspective, might say, oh, well, you caught 1 out of every 10, who knows? This is a really meaningful place to be, right? Having some form of public compliance regulation, really valuable. Another celebration for us is, here's our quantified hydrothermal endeavor. From a marine policy perspective, if any of y'all, if that's your jam, this is a really cool thing to notice. There's our little vent. But this MPA is pretty huge. It's like X times the size of the vent itself. That is really interesting and effective policy, right? If we were to protect just like 10 meters around the vent, that wouldn't really do anything. Having such a broad scale, a broad marine protected area for a fairly localized habitat this is a really interesting case study. And it's right around my heart. That is our deep sea extravaganza. Thank you all so much for coming out and playing and laughing, and I hope it was fun. We have time for a few questions. Deep sea is again really more of a topic of interest of mine than it is